Welcome, welcome, welcome. Oh. Welcome, friends and fiends, to the Red Death Mask stream. Today we're gonna be doing something a little different. We're gonna be talking about what really just amounts to Reddit drama, Reddit controversy, and we're going to be passing judgment. I'm just kidding. I mean, obviously I have opinions and that's why I want to talk about this, but you know, at the end of the day, well, at the end of the day it was just drama, although some people were, what's up, General? Some people were kind of hurt by this, and I'll get into it. So, today the stream's going to be a little bit different. It's not going to last that long, and I'm not going to be reading any stories. So if you're here for stories, don't worry, I'll be back probably this weekend with a regular stream where I'll be reading stories. So don't worry, back to business as usual. Give the whole give the cold hard truth. So yeah, let me just start out by saying this. Really all I have is my opinion. My opinion is it's not AI. Not at all. That's based on really just the fact that I know pitiful, so I do have a little bit of a bias. Let me just actually rewind real quick, because people might not know what we're talking about. So basically, one of the first solo fan CreepCast stories where it was a fan of CreepCast who wrote a story, who their story was made into a solo episode of CreepCast, which would be a dream come true for most of the authors posting on CreepCast and Tales from the Creep. And that story was There's Drumming in the Clouds by Pitiful Scream 97. So basically what happened was the story went up. A lot of people liked it, seemed to like it. It already had a lot of upvotes on the subreddit. What up, rude dude? And yeah, it was overall getting positive reviews. And I kind of saw this happening in real time, but I also saw some people posting about how, and these posts have since been removed, so I can't pull them up, unfortunately. But essentially there was a few that I saw. It wasn't just one person, but essentially the main one was somebody, and I don't know who it was on Reddit, but alleging that they are like, I work with language learning models, AIs. I have experience with them, and listening to the story today, I really got the suspicion that AI was used to make the story in some fashion or another. And there were some people saying, oh wow, I didn't think that at all. That's crazy if that's the truth. And then other people, were like, I don't think it's AI or whatever. Regardless, so these posts kind of kept bouncing around CreepCast, r/CreepCast, and essentially it was kind of a bad time, right? Because it was during the holidays. This was like a pre-recorded episode that they had recorded, I think, like maybe a few weeks back or whatever. Not that all their episodes are obviously pre-recorded, but my point being is that they made this episode specifically to air like during the holidays when like Hunter and Isaiah and people would be with their families and doing stuff, right? So it wasn't that long of an episode, it was like an hour or whatever. And then these posts went up where some people were basically just accusing the author, Pitiful Scream, of using AI. And now there was no real basis for this other than people who said that they were familiar with AI saying that it reminded them of AI. Now I'll go into it a little bit more what their allegations were, but really from what I can tell, it amounts to this. It was two lines. It was the line about miles and kilometers, which to me makes no sense because I don't think a computer would write that, because people thought they're like the line was like the cloud spread for miles in some places, in others kilometers, and people thought it was a dumb line because they're like miles and kilometers, are just two forms of measurement. Like, because a typical way you'd write that line is like in some places it spread for inches, in others miles. But I'm glad to see you speaking about this. People should really be more hesitant to level accusations like this they did with Pitiful. Drumming is one of my favorites. Well, thank you, Hubbub. Thank you for dropping in. And yeah, I'm gonna continue to break it down. But yeah, that essentially is one of my main criticisms as well. But back to the allegations that people, Redditors, were making. So they essentially said that line was like a mistake that AI would make. When, if you come at that line from like a poetic, not even a poetic, just like what Pitiful was trying to say at that line is that in some places, meaning like the Western world, the United States, the cloud spread for miles. In other places, it spread for kilometers. He wasn't trying to say that those units of measurement were vastly different than each other. What he was saying, by what that line is essentially doing, is it's telling you that, oh wow, it spans across the whole globe. It's in Europe, it's in America, and it's growing, right? The cloud is growing. So people pointed to that line as like kind of a weird line that, and Isaiah and Hunter commented on it too. They were like, oh yeah, like that seems kind of weird. Like the line was like a subversion, right, of what you would typically get, where it's like sometimes it lasted for hours, sometimes it lasted for days, right? Like that's the typical line that people hear um in writing or in movies and stuff. But Pitiful Scream, obviously not trying to just like be a cliche, hacky writer, made it his own, right? He subverted that, he made it. He took a line which would normally mean kind of one thing, and he made it kind of mean something different, right? Um, yeah, miles and kilometers are two different lengths at base level, exactly, too, and there's that. So exactly my point, but so anyways, that's just like the first, and that's kind of the smaller quote unquote evidence that they had, right? The other main evidence that the we'll call them the AI believers or the AI accusers had was that they believed that or they noticed in the story that it tended to use this type of sentence structure where it was like not X, not Y, but Z. It's apparently a common type of language or sentence structure in language models, or like when you tell an AI to write a story, it will tend to do this thing where it I guess it to them or to the computer it sounds like literary, where it's like the night wasn't black and it wasn't dark, but it was like, I don't know. It was gray, or I don't, it's something like that. It's basically saying like the sun uh the sun wasn't yellow or gold, but a brilliant amber that, uh cast a red shadow all across the town, something like that, right? And it's not just with colors. The examples I used were with colors. But essentially they said that because, and the story does do that quite a bit, where it says like, the clouds, you know, uh, they weren't weather related, or they didn't move the way normal clouds moved, and they were pervasive, kind of stuff like that. But essentially that was their evidence, and I use evidence in quotes because in my opinion it's very thin. It's even more thin when you start to look at Pitiful's other work, and you start to notice both the similarities between drumming in the clouds and the pretty vast differences. And in my opinion, those similarities and differences between drumming in the clouds and his other stories speak to somebody who has a unique writing style, somebody who tends to kind of repeat the same themes and stuff throughout his stories, but then uses different like writing styles dependent on the story. Now, let me make my first point here, and then I'll go into more of why I'm talking about this and stuff like that. So yeah, Pitiful. Sorry, I forgot where I was going with that. Let me think. Hold on. Let's take a vape break real quick. So this story in particular was written from like a scientific standpoint, right? It's like multiple logs from, I think, a few of the same scientists, but different scientists. And they're trying to categorize, if you will, this eldritch cloud that's consuming the whole planet. And so off the bat, I want to say that this whole not X, not Y, but Z type of sentence structure kind of lends itself to like the type of writing that he was going for in terms of like a log type writing, because the whole time they're trying to describe this indescribable thing in terms that they can understand. So it would make sense that they're like, it's not cumulus, it's not nimbus, but it's blah blah blah, so to speak. Like they're trying to categorize it the best that they can when it's something that's what's the Lovecraftian word, incomprehensible. And so I already think that, like, maybe not every single use of that sentence structure, but a lot of the reasons you would use that type of a sentence structure are just because it is a cosmic horror. That type of sentence structure could pop up very easily in a cosmic horror setting. And so yeah, I just automatically off the bat was like, I don't really think that's enough to just say, and these people who are making these accusations weren't like saying, some of them were being nice and saying it in like good faith and saying, I don't think this is, or not even I don't think this is the case, but like, I hope that it's not the case and blah blah blah. And they were like trying to hedge a lot of their accusations, right? But some people were just coming out saying, like, flat out, like, I'm almost 100% sure. Obviously, I can't be 100% sure, but I'm almost 100% sure that this was written at least partially by AI, or like AI, was used in the whatever editing process. I don't know exactly. But yeah, so there were more than a few people that were like not just asking the question, but were posing it as like, it's almost a fact, at least to them in their posts and how they were saying it. So these posts were left up for a while because it was the holiday. Eventually the mods got wind of them. I think they took them all down for the most part because they were like, this is baseless. Like, you can't just accuse people of basically, not plagiarizing, but basically like, using AI to create a story that, that got read on the show. You can't just accuse people of that, like, when your proof is circumstantial. And let's be very clear, the proof is almost less than circumstantial. It's more like, it's just one person's opinion. And you could say about pretty much any story that, well, in my opinion, this seems like it was written by AI. You could say that really about anything. Sure, is some stuff more like on the fence, yes, but yeah, so I think that's like important that people understand that, like, that's where all this kind of started, right? It was some people basically putting out their opinions as if they were practically facts, and then it just kind of snowballed from there, where then enough people kind of saw these comments that they were like, wow, that sucks that it's AI, like, that bums me out, blah, blah, blah. And so, the mods got on top of it, and eventually, things were whatever, maybe not put to rest, but, people realized that, like, you couldn't just accuse the author of that without any proof. And then, yeah, that's like kind of where it was left off, at least on like the main CreepCast subreddit. And, I'm sure the people who made the accusations still think that they're right. And I'm sure that the people who were unsure might still be unsure. And then the people who were coming to Pitiful Scream's defense, still believe that it's 100% a genuine, story. And I'm one of them. I'm one of those people. I wasn't like active on Reddit. I wasn't in these posts because I didn't want to give the accusations like more credence, and I wasn't gonna say anything until Pitiful Scream said something himself. And that's why I'm making this live stream now, is because I wasn't even gonna do a video or a live stream about it until I spoke with Pitiful Scream and, like, just got his 2 cents behind the scenes about, should I even talk about this, right? Because I don't want people to continue to just be arguing about it and keep making it a bigger and bigger thing, right? I don't want it to keep snowballing. So, yeah, that's kind of where we're at now. But now we get to what I want to talk about with, like, the summary that was posted, because all this drama happened, stuff got removed, and then somebody wrote like a summary of all the drama, right, so to speak. So we get to that, but then also I want to watch the beginning of the CreepCast episode, because there's this important part that comes up in the summary. Yeah, let's watch.
Also, I just looked towards the end of the author's note, and it just said that shout out to the homies for the support and help the feedback, which was Lime Time Live, Rude 3, Dude 3, Tenors 1, Imperial Invective is the author we read. So I thought that was fun. I was like, oh, cool. He helped
Imperial Invective. Yeah.
And I thought that was kind of cool. So I thought.
So first of all, fuck, that bums me out because Hunter was one name away from reading my name, which would have been really cool to see on CreepCast, but that's okay. But what's worth mentioning is, you know, Pitiful Scream put on his post, like, thank you to all these people who have you know, helped with this story and given feedback. Now, I'm one of those people who's given feedback. And in fact, if you're one of these people who wants to see if the story's changed from when it went up on CreepCast, I don't think it has, first of all. But if you want to go to my live streams, it's live stream number 10, and the timestamp is 4 hours and 2 minutes. That's when I start reading Drumming in the Clouds for the first time. And I've read Pitiful Scream's work on multiple of my streams. I've read him on stream number 7. I've read him one of his stories on stream number 2 as well. So almost since my first stream on YouTube, I've been reading Pitiful Scream's work. So I think I'm one of the few people who can really speak to, like, you know, his style as a writer and what I notice about it and what I think about it. And so, yeah, I'm going to go more into that. But my point is that I'm one of these people who gave him feedback, right? And has read multiple of his stories. Now let's get to the summary, because this is where you know, I appreciate that the summary. Well, actually, no, let's do this first. So basically all this drama is happening. People are accusing the story of this. Some people are believing the accusations, right? And then Pitiful Scream makes this post, right? He says, in response, I've seen the discussion and wanted to say one thing once. I didn't use generative AI to write There's Drumming in the Clouds. It came from my own process, draft and revisions with edits and feedback from some respected authors. They know the truth. I understand why people are wary right now. That concern is reasonable, but I'm not interested in turning this into a back and forth or proving anything. What I can do is keep writing and let my work speak over time. I appreciate everyone who engaged with the story in good faith. Peace out. Now, in my opinion, the way he handled this was very mature and he went about it in, you know, the right way. I think this was a great post. I think he answered, because a lot of people were just saying, well, why doesn't he, like, and this was immediately after the post, like immediately after these posts were going around, and they were like, well, if he just would come out and say, then, you know, it would put a lot of this to rest. And I agree, it might have, if he was like on Reddit the very moment that it happened, and he was like, no, I didn't do this, you know, maybe it would have convinced some people. But it's like, you know, the way the internet works is once it's out there, you know. And so, in my opinion, this was the best thing. And I do think that the people who wanted to believe that this story was AI, I think would have just kept looking through the same rose-colored or whatever colored, you know, goggles, where they would have just kept, you know, he would have sent like different drafts of the story, for instance, and then people would have said these drafts could have been written, blah blah blah, and he changed the timestamps or whatever. Like we don't know. What's up, Professor? as someone who was on the front lines of this drama. Yeah, and maybe you can speak more to that, because I stayed up, like, I saw it happening. I saw the accusations, and I saw like you and some other people standing up for Pitiful, but I wasn't like commenting on it, because I just didn't want. I mean, things were already snowballing, but I was like, what's the point? And it wasn't my story, and I didn't want to I didn't want to. I don't know. I talked to Pitiful behind the screens, or behind the scenes, and that's like all I could really do. I thought that was the best thing for me to do, was just be like, hey, we're here for you, and like, we support you, fuck what anyone else says, kind of thing. But maybe you can tell us like what that was like, arguing with people, or what people were saying. But yeah, so I think that this was like really good. He didn't get into a pissing contest or a proving contest, which I think was really important, because like I said, I think people would have just kept trying to see what they wanted to see, and then letting his work speak over time too, which is the point that I'm going to make on this live stream, is that I think his work already speaks over time. I see similarities throughout his work, but I also see like the difference of Drumming in the Clouds, and like how he was going for like a more scientific, like log based story, as opposed to say 1,000 Morning People, which was one of his earlier stories, which was about like the Coimhium, like zombies basically in Ireland. And there are similarities in terms of like the tone and the hopelessness of his writing. Like, one thing I noticed, and I think Hunter even noticed in the episode, he goes like, man, it's just like, I'm just fucking hopeless. Like, and it just, the story just makes me hopeless. If you read any of Pitiful Scream's work, you will notice that hopelessness is a theme throughout a lot of his works, and that to me speaks to the fact that it is written by him and only him. It's not crafted by, an algorithm or whatever. And that's the other thing kind of I want to say, is that as AI keeps getting better and better and whatever, it's like, we're not going to know, right? But if we start, like, if we as a community, meaning the CreepCast community and like the smaller Tales from a Creep community, if our instinct isn't to just like support each other and enjoy each other's stories, then what the fuck are we doing? Because if my whole thing when I read someone's stories is to try to look for a way to call them out or disprove them, or get angry at them, then it's this is not going to be a story about, or this is not going to be a podcast about enjoying horror. This is going to be a podcast about creepypasta, drama, whatever bullshit like that. That is not why we're here. We're here to enjoy, critique, help each other grow as writers, and hopefully, maybe get our story read on CreepCast one day, maybe publish some of our stories, stuff like that. Like, that is where, like, the writers who are CreepCast fans, right? That should be where we come from, where where our hearts are at. We shouldn't be trying to call each other out. And if somebody says, like, if somebody does get accused of, or somebody thinks like, hey, this kind of seems like it's just bullshit posted by AI, and then if somebody else says, or sorry, and then if the author of that story says, no, I wrote this, like, it's my own work, I didn't use AI, that should be enough. I think that should be enough for us in the CreepCast fan, Tales from the Creep community. Taking people's word for it is kind of all we have these days, because I think otherwise, we're just going to use a robot to tell us if a robot made something else. You know what I mean? It's stupid. It's gonna be the Ouroboros, a snake eating its own tail, sort of thing, and it's just gonna get worse and worse. Now here, let me get to the comments because they're coming in. The only like that I will generally say, hey, that's weird. The mild, which is what most of the arguments that it was AI were based on. Yeah, and I saw that. I saw that, Professor Creepin, and I already talked about it earlier in the stream. And I know what Pitiful was trying to do with that line, even if some other people just thought it was like dumb. I know what he was trying to do, and he was trying to do this like subversion and like this poetic subversion of like a typical sort of thing. A typical sort of like, it lasted for hours, maybe days, like that. It was that sort of a thing, but he was saying that in one hemisphere, it spread miles. In another hemisphere, it spread kilometers, meaning that it spanned both hemispheres. That's what he was trying to do with that line. And clearly, it rubbed some people the wrong way, but that doesn't mean that it's AI. That's not proof. That just isn't proof. That's a writer taking a risk, right? And clearly, like, for some people, I was a person that I didn't think twice about that line. I felt like I knew what he was trying to do with it, and it made sense. Some people, it really rubbed them the wrong way. Who gives a shit? It's a first time author's first online work, and it was edited by many authors that I trust. Hell, even the author of It Breathes, It Bleeds edited it. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's worth mentioning too, is that he was one of the people shouted out too. The main false accuser, Jasper. Okay, I don't know if I really want to out anyone. Should have been banned for harassing members of the community, in my opinion. I just came in. What are the accusations? People will explain in the chat, but basically that people threw around on the subreddit that they thought Drumming in the Clouds was written by AI or was heavily whatever, like edited with AI, so to speak. And then, yeah, Professor Creepin says, eventually it just snowballed into people just slugging and bullying an author. Yeah, exactly. Everyone knew what he was trying to say, but for some reason people decided, nope, it's AI. Yeah, and that was, other than the not X, not Y, but Z's sentence structure that was used in the story several times, people pointed to that as the other main reason that they were like, this sentence is weird. I think it's AI. This was a mistake a computer would make. And it wasn't a mistake. It was an intentional subversion of a typical kind of whatever line that you would see in movies and in writing and stuff, I totally understand not vibing with the story, but to tear down an author's work as AI just because they didn't like it is utterly ridiculous. And that's the other thing I was going to say, is there were some people that were like, yeah, I like the story, but I did kind of think that, whatever, it seemed a little odd. That's fine, and in my opinion, like, if you read Pitiful Scream's writing style, I don't think, I think some people will find it, like, maybe not heavy-handed is the right word, but it is kind of like, it's like these short bursts of, like, writing that are, like, it's like every line is impactful, right? And for some people, that's not, they don't like that in a story. They like to kind of fall into a story and then have like a single sentence like stick out at them. But Pitiful's writing is very much like every single word counts. And so, yeah, I agree. Like some people just, they're, it's not going to maybe vibe with them the way that other stories might, you know. It's his unique writing style is what I want to point to and stuff the more we go on. But yeah, and then, well, and Jenny, that's a good point. It's like dude never even apologized. From what I've seen, there have been no retractions or apologies. Um, but I think they never apologized because they didn't even view it as an accusation. They viewed it as they knew empirically, they knew it to be a truth. And that's where it gets so dangerous is like they listened to the story. They obviously like didn't like it because they were like, I think it's AI. And then they just dug their heels in, which, you know, welcome to the internet, fine. But then they went and posted about it as if they knew it to be fact, right? Like, and a lot of people were saying, like, a lot of the posts and stuff were, I'm almost 100% sure. Obviously, I can't be 100%, but I'm 99% sure it was written by AI. And it's like, I'm sorry, but you're not, you can't even be 50% sure. You don't know the author. You didn't write the fucking story. You know, the same way you see, you know, a picture that like might be slightly edited and it's like, well, did someone edit this with Photoshop or is it just AI generated? You know, it's like you don't know. Yes, in some instances we can tell if like a video is AI generated and stuff like that, but you don't know. You can't know. And especially not with writing with like writing like this. And that's my point. So here, let me get to the rest of the comments. I'm sorry, but it's just a fallback structure the author used. Hey, I do the same thing, especially in my early work. If I like a line, I'm gonna reuse the hell out of it. Exactly. That was the other point I kind of wanted to bring up. I saw several people say they don't want to post their work in the community anymore because the toxic Reddit community does stuff like this. Yes. I mean, it's not perfect. I liked it. That story definitely wasn't AI. Yes. And that's my opinion too. Is it's not AI, and I think if you go back and watch my or just read Pitiful's other work or watch my streams where I read his other work, you will see his style of writing that I'm talking about and how like every line is like it's like it's very heavy, it's very dense. It's like um it's like the weight of the world fell down on me. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. You know, I don't know, like I'm just making stuff up, I'm just improvising, but my point is like he uses these very kind of short like one line paragraphs like that is very common. And so yeah, this was, now let's get back because I want to get to the summary. This was his comment obviously that he made, and for me and for a lot of people, you know, it has 1,000 plus upvotes. This was enough. I believed him to begin with because I had read this story months before it was on CreepCast. But my point is, it's like, okay, he came out, he said he didn't use any AI, like, cool. But there were still a lot of people who are like, I don't believe him or this and that. And then the summary drops, which let's go. Okay. Sorry, here's the summary. So I'll probably read most of this, but I'll try to kind of get through it quickly. So I'm sure, but this was the summary of the recent discourse, as they would call it, which already I'm like, to call it discourse is a bit like, sure, some of it was discourse, but to call it discourse is like giving a lot of credence to the people who were just straight up accusing him with no evidence or barely any evidence, I would say, recent drama, recent accusations, I'm sure most of you have been seeing the posts going around about the story and its writing style. Despite having been vocal about my opinion here on previous posts, this is going to act more as a summary of what's happening and the bigger picture implications going forward. Now, already from this beginning point, I do think that this person was in the camp of they thought it was at least, they leaned more in the AI camp just from the way that they phrase it, because they're very generous towards the AI accuser people. Even though the mods like left this post up and made it like the final summary of what happened, in my opinion, yeah, they're definitely very generous to those people. Multiple users have independently come to the belief that Drumming in the Clouds was written by an AI, more accurately, a generative large language model, or LLM. Given this podcast's history of supporting artists and indie horror writers, and some of the host's public stance on AI art, these people have naturally felt pretty upset about this. Which, I get it that if you're one of these people who just thought this from the very beginning, not because of a post on Reddit, but just independently thought this yourself, I could understand being pissed by it or being upset by it. But then I also think like, just move on and don't listen to that episode. Just, I guess you can make a post online, but I think the post should have been like, hey, do you guys think it's possible that this story could have been, or not even that, or just like talk to your friends, see what they think. I think posting online about it is wrong, because then once you start to ask those questions, it's only going to put that idea that the story is an AI story out there, and then inevitably somebody's going to confirm it for you. Somebody's going to tell you, yeah, I think it is, Some levied direct accusations at the author. Most asked for more evidence or information of their version history or other writers' interactions in the Discord, and a few went so far as to claim they'd stop supporting the podcast. This was the minority from what I saw. Naturally, as well, this also led to a counterfaction forming who pointed out that the story could not be definitively counterfaction forming who pointed out this could not be definitively proven or disproven, that the writer themselves had claimed no AI was used, and that they despise AI, and that other writers attest to the author's work being shared for feedback and revision over a few months. Let's establish a few facts. It is true that you cannot definitively prove generative AI was used. I raised this earlier as well, in that it's entirely plausible the author coincidentally managed to write a story in this style, or that they may have just liked how the big tech, ChatGPT, Grok, Claude, blah, 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 emphasize certain points. It is true that a version history or screenshots of revision would largely resolve this discourse. I'm not so sure about that, because people were digging in their heels pretty hard. And I think that even if he showed, I mean, for instance, people came out and said this when I read the story months ago. Now, has the story changed at all from when it was read on CreepCast? I don't know. But I think, like, my point is I'm one of the people that gave feedback. Hi, here I am. I'm one of the people. Hello. Rude Dude, who's also in the chat, was one of the people who the author shouted out to give feedback. Now, before any of these people went and accused him, could they have like reached out to us and said like, hey, you gave feedback on this story. What do you think? Or, hey, but that didn't happen. And people just shot, they just fired shots before they even, cared to see that this was a real person who wrote this story behind this, who very much was hurt by this. And Jenny, I also want to comment real quick to what you said, that is what a lot of people have said. And even Pitiful, I don't want to go into too much detail about what he said, but he's like, the sentiment, that we talked about was essentially him being like, yeah, it just really soured my opinion on the whole community. And why would I want to, bust my ass and share, and post stories on there, and like, open myself up for people to just take a shit on me, or people to just assume, to be people to basically just assume that, he's not even a real person, or that him as an author is just generative AI. Like, he put his heart and soul into this, and so for people to just come out and do that has at least soured him. And that's ultimately sad, because that's one thing I want to say is like, yeah, the CreepCast subreddit can be a shit show, but I think it should be a shit show where we can support each other. Like, I don't see, there's a lot of deep fried memes and shit or like art that people post that isn't that good, and I don't see a lot of people being like, this is AI, or this, this sucks. Like, people still support it, even if the art is not that good, or the artist is like purposely doing a like shitty kind of doodle style of art. Like, people still upvote it, people still support him. So why should it be any different for an author? And I'm not even saying that because I think Pitiful's a great author. I'm not saying that his work is subpar at all. I think he's a newer author, but I think he's a great writer. And so the fact that writers are held to this like ridiculous standard, when somebody can post a deep fried meme of like, Hunter being a giant like meat carcass or something, and it's made in Photoshop in like 2 seconds or whatever, but that's fine. Like, no, it's stupid. Post a short story I wrote for my college creative writing class in the sub, but reconsidering that now. Well, and that's what I want to say is that I hope that they will still post on Tales from the Creep, because Tales from the Creep is the official CreepCast story subreddit now, and from what I can tell, it's been a supportive place thus far. It's a new subreddit. The CreepCast subreddit is just so big at this point that I think you've just got a lot of chronic Redditor, parasocial, like chronic Redditor types who, yeah, are just gonna post and not think about it. They're just gonna immediately post anything that comes to their mind about an episode, because that's just what they do, right? But Tales from the Creeps, from what I can tell, is writers supporting writers, and so I do hope that people can still find a supportive, helpful community there, where people's instincts, or people's first reaction is to not tear each other down but support each other, so that's what I will say about that. But anyways, back to the and my point is even if Pitiful had posted different versions of the story, I don't know that this would have done anything. Plus me, I know like, granted, there are some times where I have older drafts of stories or poems or stuff, but I know for me, like, once I have the most edited or most recent draft, like, I tend to only focus on that one, and all the other ones I lose. They're in a different file. I wouldn't know where to find them. So, I already like have a problem with being like, this would be so easy to disprove or to resolve this discourse. I don't think so. It's natural to believe that some of the people arguing that the story is AI would continue to do so even if it was revealed the writer had a working version or received revisions. But reasonably, I believe most would understand that this then either indicates an interactive maybe, and creative process of the author, indicating their own personal efforts and lengths gone to write this story with the former, or shifts the source of the AI content to the people who offer feedback in the servers and absolves the author themselves of its use. Either conclusion resolves the primary issue that the author simply asked an LLM to write a story about an eldritch cloud and posted it on Reddit. It is true that CreepCast has a vetting process. Basically, they go on to be like, we don't know what that process is, but I assume that, blah, 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 it's rigorous, or it's just worth a mention. Yeah, the story was just a good story for the show is why it was on there, like, first and foremost. The author themselves has claimed AI was not used, and they largely dislike AI usage. This point can be considered direct countering evidence, since we would expect someone to state this. This point can't be considered direct countering evidence. In this summary, okay, you could say, like, is it definitive? It's not definitive direct countering evidence, but it is countering evidence. If you go to court and you're accused of murder and you take the stand and you you tell them that you didn't kill the person, then that is countering evidence. Now, maybe it's not definitive, but it is countering evidence. This whole idea that, like, the fact that the writer claimed that it's not AI, we can't take their word for it. Like, that's basically, this is where I start to have problems with the summary, because it tries to be like so almost legal. It tries to use like this legalese, right? And it's like, it's basic. This whole subline here, like up here, it's saying the author themselves has claimed AI was not used and that they largely dislike AI uses. This point can't be considered direct countering evidence. Yes, it can. The person came out and said, I didn't use AI. I don't like AI. I don't use AI in any of my stories. The person said that. Since when is whatever firsthand testimony, even by the accused, not relevant? Like, basically this person is saying, like, this doesn't mean anything and it's not relevant. And it's like, the per since when does your word not matter? Even in court, like, they ask how you plead. They ask, are you guilty, not guilty? So, and I'm not saying that this is a courtroom, but they're trying to summarize this as if it's all been litigated, as if it was in a courtroom. And that's my issue, is like, this was not in a courtroom. This was on the fucking internet. And you're giving credence to the discourse as if it was in a fucking, if it was like what's it called? Not litigation, but where like, it's like some deposition. This was like the Oppenheimer fucking depositions where everything's being recorded and all that shit. What up, creepin'? We're just getting to the summary now, and we're getting to the parts where they, like, this part where they say that the author claimed AI was not used, and then they say this point can't be considered direct countering evidence, since we would expect someone to state this whether they had used AI or had not. It's simply in the best interest of the author not to state. See, even this is confusing, the way they fucking worded this. The author not to state they used AI, and the author themselves has disengaged from providing more information. They explained why they didn't want to get into a pissing contest proving it, and the reason that they disengaged is because people didn't come to the author and just ask him. People went on Reddit and started claiming this, and then a bunch of people started agreeing and arguing with them about, well, I think it might be AI because of this, or I think it might not be. And so the whole conversation was already so far past anything that the author, if you were the author, you would not want to. All you'd want to do is come out and be like, I didn't use AI, and I hope that can be enough for you. And that's exactly what fucking Pitiful did. So why are you acting like that's not enough, that the author came out and said that it's not AI? Why are you acting so like you're some great litigator who's like, well, we cannot take this on face value because in the court of public opinion of Reddit, only the upvotes reign supreme, and blah blah blah. Like, no. And the reason they disengaged after they came out and said their piece, they said that they didn't use AI. Why is that to you like the same as if they had said nothing? They didn't say nothing, but to you, but the way that they're summarizing this, it's like they're like, the author didn't really say anything because we can't take their word, because their word is immaterial, and that's it. That's basically it. Stupid. They wanted to hop on and pretend they were smart and ride a bandwagon of hate. Yeah. They were lawyers and AI experts. Like, what's the credentials? Yeah, exactly. And I will get to that because I have some other stuff. Basically, a lot of their arguments too. A lot of the people who were jumping on this hate bandwagon, their arguments were, well, a lot of people who work with AI are the ones who first notice this, and because they work with AI, I trust this person who I don't know on Reddit more than I trust the podcast that I love, and the author that the podcast is like championing. Ridiculous, so stupid. It was a few people being like, I work with AI, or I know a lot about AI, or X, Y, and Z. And who knows, maybe those people have like credentials. Some of them sounded like they knew what they were talking about, but they could have used AI to write those freaking comments to make themselves sound smarter, and we wouldn't know. Their comments could have been written by AI. We don't know. They could have said, I hate drumming in the clouds. Right, it's this story on this podcast, CreepCast. Write me a comment explaining why this story could be AI. And they could have taken whatever the fucking the AI spit out and they could have posted it on Reddit themselves. Anytime. Yeah, and Creepin brings up a good point, which is something I wanted to mention later. This seems to happen if the story isn't like Thomas Ligotti level, if it isn't like an insane masterpiece, people post this shit and it's always like, well, I didn't think the story was that bad, but I definitely think it was written by AI. You know what I mean? The comments are always like that when they're it's a fan story. And I think one of the other reasons I think is because I think it's like it's the people who were pissed off when there were a lot of fan stories getting posted on the main subreddit. And it's people who are just jealous, right? They're jealous that they didn't write a story that made it on CreepCast. Because they either wanted to or they are a writer and they're jealous. And that's fucked up. Alright, let me catch up on the comments. It's like, unless you have some crazy Shakespearean writing and prose and a super intriguing premise, fans decide it's terrible when the number of times CreepCast has covered badly written stories. Exactly. The funny, annoying thing is AI does have specific writing quirks that one can spot. Guess what? Guess what wasn't in drumming in the clouds? But those, well, and that's another thing too, is people said like, people were like, it could have only been more obvious if the story had a bunch of M dashes. And I know what they mean because I've seen when AI spits shit out, it does use a lot of M dashes. But the one thing I will say is that yes, the story doesn't use that, but if you go look up pitiful screams 1,000 mourning people, sorry, I had that here. If you look up his story, 1,000 Mourning People, which is one of the first ones I covered, drumming, and he's been promoting this story for a long time too. Like he has been grinding as an author, and that's why his story got on CreepCast. Not only because he's talented and he's a good writer, but he works. But he worked hard at it. This is the first story of his that I covered, and it uses, if you copied this story, he uses some dashes like here. It was morning, maybe 5 a.m., but it's not the way that AI would use them. And even so, if you took this story, which he wrote himself, and then you copied it into a thing, it would put so many M dashes. It would have put an M dash right after here. I won't let anything happen to her. And it would have just kept putting in a fuck ton all over the place. But this is what I mean by like, our small community, one that had stood for 16 years, was about to fall. We were going to join them. I refused to let this be Roshin's end. Her mother, my sister, died 2 weeks ago. Died or became one of them. What's the difference, really? I was the only one who had to do it. Put her down, they said, as my beautiful sister, her eyes hollowed and gone, her skin graying by the second, stumbled toward me, tripping over the one who had touched her, reaching for me. It's their touch that turns you. Like all of them. Like this is how Pitiful writes. He writes with these It's their touch that turns you. Like all of them, she spoke with a dry, dying breath, each syllable expelled in a pathetic gasp. You see how short these paragraphs are? This is how he's always written. So even when you read the logs in Drumming in the Clouds, there's a similarity to it. And AI is not that repeatable like that. Like, you could not take the themes and a thing of one story and do it to another like that. Or maybe it is, because here's the other thing. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm not an AI expert. I'm never going to be. But what I am an expert in is reading fan stories. At this point, yes, I'm an expert in reading CreepCast fan stories. I've done it for a lot of hours now. I have over 30 live streams. From the 3 stories, I think I've even read more than 3, but from the 3 stories I've read from Pitiful Scream, I get the sense that he's a unique, distinct author who is a human being who writes in his own way, his own style, and it's unique to him. Now, could you say that, well, it's all just because one AI wrote all of his stories? Yeah, I'm sure you probably could. But the point is, I'm here to enjoy stories and to have fun. So when the writer comes out and says, hey, I didn't use AI, I worked really hard on their stories, I poured my blood, sweat, and tears into them, please, he didn't even say, please take my word for it, but he said, I despise AI, these stories are all me, thank you to anyone who enjoyed the story. That's enough for me. Why? Because I want to have fun reading unpublished authors' works. Like, I want to enjoy the rawness of a horror story that no one's ever read before. That is what I'm here for. That is what I like about CreepCast, is that we get the Jeff the Killers type stories, we get the Eyeless Jack type stories, but then we also get the Red Towers and the Pen Pals and the whatever. It's beautiful. It's beautiful because there's such a wide array of shitty and cringy to brilliant and thought-provoking. That is what makes the podcast great. And that is why I choose to also, believe Pitiful. And besides the fact that I believe, that I'm choosing to take his word for it, I also just, when I've read multiple of his work, I never got that impression. I got the impression that this was somebody who's worked really hard on writing these stories, and they're beautiful and they're hopeless and they're like depressing and they're awesome. And so that is what it is. That is why I'm doing this. That's why I'm talking about this. And I know that there are some people that'll go, well, look, he did an M dash right here. Or it's not even an M dash. It's a fucking journal / mark or whatever. So it must be AI. And it's like, people do this when they write dates. They write entry 1. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's just stupid. Yeah, the whole AI finger pointing thing is only going to get worse, and that's why I think there needs to be some way for writers to be like, to put like a watermark in something so at least like you can know that it's yours. I don't know. There's got to be some technological way for people to fix this so that we know. I don't know. Anyways, yeah, double dashes to M dashes. Yep, I'm cooked. Point where the Reddit fan base is just utterly toxic. Unless you make a meme every week, the story or whatever they cover isn't good enough. As AI gets harder to distinguish, yeah, it's only going to get worse to the point where nobody is safe from accusations. Exactly. And so that's kind of my point, is like, well, at this point, not like don't ever accuse anybody, or if you don't like a story, just say you don't like the story. Call it shit. Say that the author's a pretentious douchebag. Say any of that stuff. But to accuse a young new writer of being basically just saying you faked this story, you didn't write this story yourself, it just sucks, dude. It's like, what a way to take the creative wind out of somebody's sails. And it's a new problem that society has not had to deal with up until now. So I think we really, like, people need to work on this, and we need to fix this, and we need to come up with a way not only to distinguish like AI videos and shit, because all those problems are going to get worse, right? But we need to come up with a way to where, even though it's a digital copy, I don't know if it has to be an NFT or something, to where the digital copy of your story is unique, and no one, and people can see the metadata, and they can see if it ever got copied or input into a fucking, whatever, AI, or if an AI ever worked on it, something like that. I think that's the thing, is I think we need AI like footprints, right? Where if an AI touches something, people know that it was touched by an AI. People know that part of it might be faked or changed in some way, what we do to fix this is scrap the data centers for parts. That's another option, and I would not be opposed to that. No proof would have changed many people's mindset regardless. Once people are on a certain mindset, they are set in, and that's the other nature of the internet too, is that people were just digging their heels in. And even in the way that this person is summarizing the discourse, I would have called it accusations, finger pointing, AI drama, but they call it discourse. And it's like, okay. Yeah, I don't know. A text-based watermark. I don't know. I think I think that there's got to be some way, right? There's got to be some way that you can have some sort of a file that people can see that file is like genuine, and they can relate it to you or your data, to where they can see that, oh, this is when the file started, this is when it got edited, this is when it blah blah blah. And once that sort of a thing, right? I don't know. Strap a GoPro to yourself. Well, that's what I was gonna say, is that my way of, I think I'm gonna live stream when I write. I think I'm gonna have to live stream every single thing. But then if I do that when I write, and I have people in the chat like helping me with words, or like helping me come up with ideas, they're gonna be like, the people in the chat used AI, so he used AI on his story, even if I wrote a whole story on stream. And a webcam all recording while you write, then I'll believe you. Yeah. Anyways, so yeah, I want to do, okay, so now here, let's get, because we still need to get to one part in the summary. The author themselves has disengaged from providing more information. They didn't disengage. They said their fucking piece, and then they left this bullshit to fizzle out on its own. They didn't, they may have disengaged in your words, but like, they also said their fucking piece. This also cannot be considered direct supporting evidence. Yes, a version history or feedback revision would resolve the situation, and it can feel frustrating that someone so closely part of it would deny that information. I'm certain that the CreepCast team is requesting something similar on their end. No, they're not. That is so stupid that CreepCast saw people talking about this on Reddit, and they said, you know, this author who we've already asked their permission and got this stuff from their story, let's contact them again and tell them, hey, prove to us, send us files to prove to us that this story isn't AI. That is what this person is legitimately saying they believe is happening. They go, I believe, I'm certain that the CreepCast team is doing this. Do you really think that they're doing that? Or do you think that they're just trying to get the next story, or they're trying to talk to established authors and publishers because they're not going to do another fan story for a long time because you guys fucking ruined it for fan authors and for fans in general? Oh, God, it pisses me off that they literally said that. I'm certain that the CreepCast team is requesting something similar on their end to validate the nature of this story. At the same time, from the perspective of the author, this can be pretty reasonable even if they didn't use an LLM. If they just feel the implication that something they were excited to share and worked hard to create was undermined by droves of the audience in a way other stories weren't. They also might feel that no evidence they could provide would assuage the accusations they experienced. You fucking think? Of course they feel that way. And so aren't interested in proving the claims wrong. The thing is, they could have just put Pitiful's whole statement in this and it would have said everything they just said in a much more succinct way. But they're like, I'm going to put it in my words to where I can make it sound like they're not saying that it is AI, but they're not saying that it's not AI. You know what I mean? They're making it overly confusing and just trying to muddy the waters, in my opinion. That's like what this, it is a summary of what happened, but it's also a muddying of the fucking waters. Either way, nothing much to be garnered here. Co-writers or feedback providers have not provided any screenshots or evidence of revisions. Hi, my name is RedDeathMask. Hi, Redditor. I am providing evidence of not screenshots or revisions because I didn't write the story and I didn't revise the story. But I did read multiple of his stories on my live stream. You can go to youtube.com and you can subscribe to RedDeathMask, and you can look at my live stream. It's live stream number 2, live stream number 7, and live stream number 10. And in number 10 at 4 hours, 2 minutes and 35 seconds is when I start reading Drumming in the Clouds. And you can do all that work because you guys are the ones that think that it's AI in the first place. So you can compare it to the CreepCast episode and you can see if there are any revisions or any changes, or you can see me reading the story and then me talking with Pitiful in the comments, and we're discussing the story and discussing if I think they should make any changes and what they think I should do. If you can't tell, this is the part that really pissed me off and made me want to, I wanted to talk, that's wrong. I wanted to talk about this from the beginning because I wanted to defend Pitiful Scream, and I wanted to defend writers, I wanted to defend small, unpublished, first-time authors. But this is the part that really pissed me off, where they're like, co-writers and feedback providers have not provided any screenshots or evidence of revisions. Like, so anyone who provided feedback was supposed to know that this happened, or know that this was happening, and then was supposed to just come hot and ready with screenshots of being like, I think you should change this part, or I think you should do X, Y, or Z. And even if that did happen, who's to say that a person couldn't have just written something with AI, then sent it out to a bunch of people, and all those people sent revisions and feedback? That's totally possible. So that wouldn't prove anything, would it? So you're asking for the co-writers or feedback providers to provide you with discounting evidence that then you would turn around and say doesn't prove anything. It's so disingenuous, and it pisses me off, and it's, like I said, it's hypercritical, it's overcomplicated legalese bullshit, to where they're giving a somewhat fair summary of the drama in terms of they're explaining that, like, the writer said that it's not AI. They're telling you the chain sequence of events, but they're also making sure that the whole time the sequence of events, you read about it in this post, they're making sure that the whole time you can still think that it's AI, if you want to. They're telling the series of events in such a way that it's letting all the people who accused Pitiful Scream, and I say accused because they just said that it was AI. I put accused in quotes. They're letting all the people who claimed that this was AI off scot-free. They're saying, well, even though the author said this and he's had other people help him with the stories and blah, 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 none of that can really be taken as fact. So don't worry. None of this is a fact. This is all online Reddit bullshit. Are you fucking kidding me? Yeah, and that was the other thing I was going to say. And if these people cared to look, they would have seen, like, not only did the co-writers, and they're not even co-writers, the people who gave feedback, Pitiful wrote this on himself. This is when he posted Drumming in the Clouds is #1 on creepypasta.com, and this was when Mr. Creepypasta had just done a video about it. This is me. Wow, congrats. Keep killing it. Thank you, brother. Lime Time Live, another one. What a fantastic read. If any of you haven't taken a look at this story, I highly recommend you do so. M dash here might be an AI, might be a dash, right? Appreciate you, bro. Thank you for the feedback on this. Legit one of the best stories I've seen in a while. I'm so glad to see it posted in the new sub. Go Pitiful with your bad self. Again, all of these people, we're all in here being like, fuck yeah, our boy, hell yeah. We're proud because this is our fellow writer who made it. He made it onto the podcast that we all love, that all made us start writing, or made us pick back up a pen when for so long we were burnt out, or we thought we were done with writing or whatever. It invigorated us, and we all had that same dream or a similar dream where, well, maybe I'll start writing horror, and then maybe I'll get a story published somewhere, or maybe I'll get the story onto Reddit and the boys will see it, and maybe they'll read it on an episode one day. Wouldn't that be awesome? That would be like a dream come true. Wow. And here's an example of that happening with Pitiful, with Drumming in the Clouds. And it's such a beautiful fucking thing that they sullied, or that they got jealous of, and rather than be happy for him and just say, you know what, I wish it was my story, but I can't, I didn't really like the story, but congrats, man. Instead of doing that, people fucking started slinging mud, slinging arrows. And I know that that's how the internet goes. And I know that the bigger audience you reach, inevitably you're going to have detractors. But they could have just said they hated the story. They could have just said they thought the story was mid. They didn't have to go, I'm 99% sure that this was AI. I work a lot with AIs and I know this kind of stuff, and this was AI. I'm saying it without fully saying it, but I'm kind of saying it. I'm fence sitting, but I'm also not, and I'm also jumping off the fence. It's so frustrating. So unbelievably just disappointing. Sorry, here I'm getting confused. So that's his response here. So that was the summary. This was the part where co-writers and feedback providers have not provided any screenshots or evidence of revisions. Again, similar to the last point, while this initially feels like a pretty easy thing to provide, they keep doing this in the summary. They keep saying, it would be so simple if they would just show some revisions or show some. They keep. Wouldn't it have been just as easy for the people claiming that they knew this to be fact to delete their posts and apologize once the author came out and said it's not AI? Isn't that pretty easy too? Or wouldn't, if they were so sure, if they were so certain that this was AI, wouldn't they have been able to provide some sort of empirical evidence that this was AI? No, it was completely fucking what's the word I'm looking for? It's evidence where it's not empirical, it's your own story, it's your own from your own, anyways, doesn't matter. They would have been able, they were the ones who, let me ask you this. Who is the burden of proof on? Is the burden of proof on the defendant, or is the burden of proof on the accuser? Usually in the criminal justice system, it's on the state. It's on the people who are saying, we know you did this thing to be a fact, and so we're going to convict you of this crime. These people came on to Reddit and said, we believe that this story is written as AI, and we believe that this is a fact. Stupidly enough. That's literally what they were saying. And then they provided little to no evidence. And then when the writer came out and said it's not AI, then they said, well, we're not sure. Or, well, we think it is. Sorry, we think it is. Or, we don't believe you. Show us evidence. And it's like, you are the ones making the accusation. Fuck you. He doesn't have to prove anything. He shouldn't have to. The only person who should have to prove anything, like, I could understand if people were like, what's the vetting process or this or that? Like, if they were asking like the CreepCast mods questions, but they didn't do it. They just directly said, we think Pitiful Scream used AI to write this story. It's so frustrating. Anyways. Yeah, this recap is pretty pandering. LOL. Yeah. Sorry, I thought for a second you were talking about my recap, and I was like, I'm trying to pander. I am pandering. I said at the beginning, I'm biased towards Pitiful Scream, and I am trying to pander to people to fucking support writers and not sling mud for no goddamn good reason. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm trying to pander to. I want to say people's better halves, but more just not even your better half, just don't be quick to accuse people, especially in circumstances where this is people's art, right? They're pouring their heart and souls into it. So don't just immediately shit on it and go, we think this was AI. There were also people going back to Pitiful as comment history and calling him an idiot for misspelling things. So it has to be AI because he misspelled simple sentences on Reddit. Like, bruh, yeah, which we all fucking do. We all do. That pisses me off. I did not know that. Creeping. Their idea that what this was a massive conspiracy that 10 to 12 people would defend AI writing. Mind you, accomplished authors with dozens of stories. Why would they do that? They wouldn't. They would not. It makes no sense. No one on here, including myself, like, if I knew, and not just like the Redditors thought they knew, but if I knew empirically like something was AI, like I watched an AI generate it, and then I watched an AI post something on the thing, and then somebody else came and said it was AI, I would not fucking. I would say, yeah, they're right, you know. But this is a person that I talked to who, like, I reached out to, or they reached out to me. I forget exactly how it happened, and I said, "Oh, can I have permission to read your story and like give feedback and critique it?" And they were like, "Yeah, for sure." And then we, over the course of months, and then like, this is somebody that I've had like an online collaborative, so to speak, like relationship with, where I've talked to them, so I'm good. Like, automatically I'm going to assume that they're a real person. Is it possible that it was all an AI behind the curtain? It's possible. Fuck, I guess anything's possible. But it's just stupid. It's so conspiratorial, like you said, Creeping. And this whole thing reads as like a conspiratorial explanation, or like manifesto almost. Again, while this initially feels like a pretty easy thing to provide, these writers will just be honoring the author's intent to not make this about proof, or the semi-secrecy of the writer's Discord may be preventing individuals from sharing the direct screenshots or further information. Like, it's a fucking court case. Like, can we take it down a notch? Please, can we take it down a notch? I realize that they're trying to be like unbiased in this summary, but they're making it sound just so many levels of ridiculousness. Experts in LLMs and AI have been mixed on the text itself. While there are more examples of individuals coming to the consensus of LLM use with a prior history of use themselves, people who have created and studied LLMs have independently come to the conclusion that the text was probably generated or was probably human-made, given its unique phrasings in certain sections. Given what we assume our experts don't have a shared conclusion, we can't support the situation one way or the other based on this. Really, because it really seems like you're trying to leave it open. See, to me, this is saying is like, we can't prove it one way or another. So then why don't you say, like, I realize that this is just a summary, but it really just seems like this is trying to cover the ass of everybody who accused it's AI when accused it of being AI, when it should say, so it would only be fair to ask that because it can't be proven one way or other, that the people who made these accusations, these baseless accusations, rescind them, or apologize. Finally, let's discuss the implications. I'm not going to go into too much of this. It's like, basically the moderators removed a lot of stuff because people were literally attacking Pitiful Scream, and so they just like kind of removed all the stuff. Is an undue attack on the author's credibility in writing, and that CreepCast is a welcoming and supportive, should not devolve into arguing over the authenticity of its fan writers, or any writer for that matter. Moderators have removed a lot of posts directly making accusations at the writer or framing the issue negatively towards them, and they have a right to. At the same time, this discussion also appears to have begun spawning off-site posts. If decriers are simply removed or banned from the sub and from the YouTube comments, we quickly run into a scenario where individuals can directly submit AI-generated stories, with authentic writers no longer being so accessibly supported by the show, or CreepCast simply not covering fan stories, which also removes writer accessibility for support. That is the extent of what I can say on this matter. Also, please don't accuse the author directly of using AI or an LLM, or for not being willing to provide more information. It's their story. The pod hosts enjoyed it, and you also can be certain that it wasn't written, and you also can't be certain that it wasn't written by their own hands. Again, how about saying, and they've stated that it was written by them and only them. Why not just say that? But it's like, and you also can't be certain it wasn't written by their own hand. Again, confusing, double negatives, double speech, bullshit. TLDR, makes sense people feel the way they do, but there's not much we can do about it. Happy New Year. Continue to write, and here's to hoping this all turns around for the better. Edited for formatting. Okay. So anyways, that's the summary. Obviously, I have my issues with it. Did it summarize the course of events in an okay way? My bad. I was busy enjoying my holiday and New Year's with my family. Yeah, as were most of us. People were also accusing, Giorgio background of AI before, and we have, and have accused thumbnails as well. Yeah, I know, and I have continued to see just little things about that here and there, and I've been like, even if CreepCast wanted to just make like AI, I don't know how they're photoshopped, if the Photoshop programs uses some generative like AI or the way it makes Isaiah and Hunter look all like glistening and stuff. I don't know how that shit works. I'm a small fucking YouTuber who doesn't even know how to make a fucking thumbnail other than just taking a picture and being like, someone use that for a thumbnail. So I don't know how that shit works. And yeah, they've come out against AI, so I doubt, like, again, either take Isaiah and Hunter's word for it, because they both come out being like, yeah, we don't like shit that uses AI, we don't support it, like, we're both, maybe Isaiah's not an artist, but they're both creators, and Hunter's an artist, and they're like, so obviously they wouldn't do it. I don't think they would do it. So take their fucking word for it and just be done with it. And and quit trying to be the fucking the RoboCop, the robot police, the clanker Klux Klan. Quit trying to suss out like all this stuff that is AI or isn't AI, and just enjoy the fucking stories. Because if people start just doing this more and more, I mean, you're gonna do it with everything. And I agree, if in some $1 million like studio or big budget thing, and then it comes out, it gets leaked or whatever, that, oh, this movie was actually written by AI, or this, whatever used AI, like they used AI to do all the effects of this sort of thing, and that comes out. I think it should be a big deal, because I think that studio or that $1 million corporation fucked over a lot of people. And I also think that whole writer strike and actor strike was about them not being able to do shit like that, at least for the most part. I don't know the ins and outs of it. And so, like, if a studio does it or something, yeah, I think it's a big deal. But I mean, YouTubers are already using AI for fucking thumbnails and shit all the time. So, like, if CreepCast did it, would it be hypocritical? Yes. Could they do it? Yes. Like, what the fuck? Okay, so then if you figure out that you 100% had proof that they used AI in a thumbnail that CreepCast did, and that really pisses you off, then stop watching the podcast. Call them fucking hypocrites. That's fine if you knew it to be true. My point is, no one knew anything to be true. They just assumed, and then they doubled down on those assumptions, and then they tried to corroborate those assumptions with their own just like experiences, and it's not fair. It's not fair to the writer. It's not fair to future writers. It's not fair to fucking anybody, and it sucks. It really sucks. So we're coming to an end here, but I did want to highlight this post, because the use of AI is a contentious topic here. I like to talk to you all about it. I've worked with AI for nearly a year, specifically training them as a copywriter, meaning to write ads for companies, which companies already do. You can tell on YouTube when you get an AI ad. I mean, a lot of the copy is probably already generated by AI, but you can tell when it's like an AI voice and shit. A lot of this is another thing that pisses me off too. A lot of narration channels, ones that people support, ones that people like, they use AI narrators. Like, I've heard that voice, and then I've said, wait a second, I've heard that voice in a lot of things. Or they used, maybe it's not an AI narrator, but it's like a robot. I don't know the difference. It's a robot narrator. It's the same fucking thing. So I'm like, where are all these people who are clutching their pearls, decrying, as the other Redditor put? Where are they all? Why are all these narration channels that use fucking generated robot voices or use not real voices? Where are all that? Where's the outrage there? I guess it's only for CreepCast, because Isaiah and Hunter have come out against AI in some circumstances. So they're like, if they even smell anything related to AI, they freak the fuck out. Specifically training them as a copywriter. Creative writing, rewriting, and extraction tends to be the training method I choose to interact with the AI. I can tell you with confidence, drumming in the clouds is not AI generated. I have heard or read a single story. I have not heard or read a single story in my time with this community that comes off AI generated. Here's why. AI is fucking dumb. AI is fucking dumb. Period. Especially text-based. While they understand grammar, sentence structure, and idea generation, they do not retain memory or continuity in long context. That was another argument that I didn't see a lot of people bringing up, but I was like, the story is pretty fucking long, and it's written in different logs that refer to the past logs, and I feel like a lot of AI just wouldn't. Like, if you tell AI to write you a story right now, no matter how long, like, you can say you want it to be X amount of words, but it's always short, I feel like. Because I've asked it, I've asked AI, like, tell me a joke or tell me a whatever, and it's always just really simple, like it's a summary. It's always a summary. It's very summarizing, because that's what it's designed to do, right? It's designed to, you're like, tell me about what's going on in the Middle East. It gives you a summary. Tell me about, you know, this movie. It gives you a summary. That's what it does. It doesn't like write character based narratives, really. you know Even if you tell it, like, write me a story about a cat who, is black and runs through the neighborhood talking to ghosts. It'll write you like a very brief little story about a black cat, and then maybe a ghost will appear in it, maybe it won't, who knows. Now all prove we are not bots. Time to form the ID sharing circle. Yeah. I think some people have like reversed parasocialness, where they hate a creator and they still watch everything and spread hate. Oh, people definitely do. I mean, I've seen it with I've talked about it a little bit, but like, I'm an H3 fan too. I love the H3 podcast, and I've seen it happen where a lot of people are fallen fans, but they're the biggest fucking fans of that community. They watch every stream, and then they go and post videos on like Twitter or Reddit on the H3 Snark pages, and it's just all about like, what can we bitch about today? What can we find fault in today? And some of them are fallen fans, and some of them were probably never really fans, but they become the biggest hater fans because they watch every single second. Is that it tends to leave out important stuff too. Ask it about the eggnog riots. It'll leave out who was involved and what happened afterwards. Exactly, right? Like, it'll tell you, it'll tell you the specific thing that like comes up on Wikipedia or whatever, but it's not going to go into the before and the after and the implications and the history. Like, yeah, it's a good point, but it's a good point that he brings up here. There's no way to effectively use long form without serious, noticeable oversights, plot holes, wrong name, nonsensical action. He reloaded before pulling the parachute with a crack. Hunter's dog collapsed. I love that example. You could argue that could be edited out, but there's almost always a remnant left behind. I have not come across anything that blatantly forgets to human in CreepCast, except maybe David King. Again, yeah, it's like, if there were stories to accuse this of, I know that a lot of them are older from those classic creepypasta days, but it is so maddening that this was the story that they choose. Like, a well-written, well-thought-out, interesting, like, log-based narrative where it's like multiple scientists talking to each other about the climate unfolding on this thing. I don't think it's a glaring thing in this story, but I've seen a few totally perceptive mentions of minor repetitive language, phrases like X, not Y, long story short, anyways, and suddenly, isn't common from the side of the projects I've worked on with training models. That's a pretty human-like attribute in writing. Try to count how many times Hunter says, "That's sick," or Isaiah says, "Yeah," in an episode. We all have a way we feel comfortable conveying or responding to things. AI is more likely to over-formalize language or be overly declarative than it is to be repetitive. Example, Cynthia went around the corner. Her sandwich fell. She looked upon the tarnished sewer grate with trepidation. Pour me something tall and strong, melodically floated out of it. with the unmistakable and chilling dialect of an Appalachian citizen. Yeah, like that. Yeah, he's giving you really good examples, but it's also just it's like this person, I know they just work with like copy, you know, for like copywriting AIs, but I think it's worth mentioning that like this person has the background, right, where they work with it every day. And kind of all the things that the other people said were definitive as to why it is AI, he's basically saying, like, if you just look at it from the other way, there's plenty of reasons why it's not. So, which again just leads me to believe that these people already had their mind made up. They didn't like the story or something about the story because it was written by a fan, probably. The fact that it got introduced that way led them to be skeptical of it. And then because they were skeptical of it, they had those lenses on and they went into it, you know, already looking for something to be fucking wrong with it. And of course they came up with the one thing that you can't prove or disprove, which is it was written by AI. It wasn't that it sucked. It wasn't that they didn't like it. It was that it's probably written by AI. Long story short, yeah, I'm getting Camp Oakwood flashbacks. Exactly. There's a narrative voice from, and this is the thing. There is a narrative voice from Jumping in the Clouds that irrefutably tips me off that this wasn't AI. That's my main point, is if you read Pitiful's work from Thousand Morning People, Drumming in the Clouds, the other one about the person like outside the house or whatever, there is a consistent narrative voice throughout that is unique to him. That makes you go, if you've read one, it's just like with like Stephen King or somebody else, where if you've read one of his books, you hear it in another thing and you go, oh, I bet that's Stephen King. And you don't know exactly what it is that tips you off to that, but you go, oh, I bet that's them. And sure enough, you figure out that, yup, it's him. And it's that unique, it's that narrative voice. It's that you know, it's that writer's voice, where they say like where writers find their voice. Once you find your voice, it's unique to you. It's like a comedian finding their voice on the stage. It's like, you know, it's something in art that's like indescribable, but it's as unique as a fingerprint. And it's why people who are in the art world and they see one painting, even though, or they see two paintings, even though they're of two completely different things and two completely different styles even, and they go, oh, yep, that's so-and-so. And sure enough, they're both the same, you know, painter. In the beginning, there's a sentence. The conference room was full, unusual for a Tuesday. To us, it sounds like someone guiding our understanding. An AI model would be confused by the latter half of the sentence, seeing it as an incomplete phrase. They prefer full phrases. Unusual for a Tuesday would go through its processing like, is it busier on Wednesday? It should be, which is unusual for Tuesday, but not a Wednesday, for clarity. I know this because I put excerpts of stories this community may be familiar with through model training. Ask them to pick out anything that may need revised, and receive long list of receipts containing all the ways it does not understand how humans can communicate colloquially or personally. Spotted by a satellite, cross-checked by a second pass. The night posing in its darkness, faces contorted in fear, veins pulsated, a blanket, a membrane, a womb stretched across the earth. See, that's an example from the story of that, the XXY, or maybe not exactly, because it's the example was not X, or, not X, not Y, but Z. But my point is he's putting all these things in that an AI would have trouble with, and these are all examples from the story, right? A membrane, a womb that stretched across the earth. Now it's here, beneath his bones, deep in the dark belly of the world. AI does not write like this, or this consistently in long context. Yes, that's another thing too, is like, you might tell AI to like write something creepy about like the sun setting, right? And it will do that for you, and it will do that pretty well. But it works a lot better when it's just a specific example like that. If you say write a horror story about that, it might describe some parts as like really scary, but then other parts will just be normal descriptions of shit. That's the unmistakable voice of our author, who knows you don't need the subject, verb, transitive, direct, object structure to make you quake in your false shelter. It comes off like someone staring into a campfire while telling the story. That's a specific tonal choice AI wouldn't register. I really hope this helps give creeps a base on which to suss out AI generated content. I don't use AI when I'm not training it, so I can't speak for the finished outputs of systems that I'm not training. This caught my attention because of what I do. I just wanted to share my perspective as an AI copywriter and someone who loves to write. Drumming in the Clouds was great, and the writer clearly put a lot of work into it. I want to support them, other authors, and this community's evolving knowledge. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Please don't come after me for helping the AI take over. If you were in my seat, you'd be a lot less worried about it. Sincerely, G&T. I think it was a great post. I think it raised a lot of really good points. But it's also like, here's somebody who works with AI. Maybe he's not a coder who like develops language models, but he works with AI every day, right? And it just goes to show, and he's a writer, right? A copywriter. Those guys write a lot. They write a lot, even before AI, especially before AI. And even now it sounds like he's writing a lot more because he's using and training the AI, right, to be able to write ads for companies for free, essentially, which sucks because eventually it means he won't ever have the job of being a copywriter will completely probably vanish in the next like 5 to 10 years. But hey, it's the world we live in, and he takes the same points that the other guys are making, he refutes all the points basically of the people that made these accusations. So I think it's important to say that there are some people who have background in AI that believed that this story was written by the human known only as Pitiful Scream 97. And yeah, I think like in summation, here, let's see if there's any other thing I wanted to get to. I think in summation, the CreepCast sub is big, right? So it's gonna have a lot of like parasocial weirdness and a lot of people fighting about stuff and a lot of just internet bullshit, right? And so I get how that's just what the internet does, and sometimes it can get out of hand. And, this is an example of it, but it is an example that I think hurt the CreepCast community in a long run, because I think a lot of writers are going to think twice about posting their stuff, especially if they're a new writer, especially if they're a fan that that just maybe isn't as confident, or maybe isn't as sure about if people will recognize their real human voice in the writing. If you're a new writer and you haven't found your voice yet, and then you put something out, clearly there's a worry now that people are going to say, oh, this doesn't even sound like it was written by a person, so it must be a robot, because you're somebody who's new, who's figuring it out. And so I think that this discourse, the word discourse implies productive, implies an exchange of ideas from mutually respectful sides. This wasn't that. People were not respectful to Pitiful Scream. People were calling him out directly. People were taunting him for evidence, all sorts of shit. It was not a discourse. It was people slinging mud because they didn't like his story, or because they, didn't believe it was him who wrote it or whatever. And they were pissed off. And, I'll say a lot of them were probably jealous too. And that pisses me off because, let's take No Sleep, for example. No Sleep for a long time, and still is, the premier place for horror to be posted on the internet, on Reddit, horror stories anyways. And especially during its heyday, think about, if right before Damon Arbach, or I think that's his name, was about to write Pen Pal, if he saw some other story that he really liked, that then all of a sudden a bunch of people came out and said, we think you plagiarized this, or you didn't write this yourself, blah blah blah, you had a ghostwriter, whatever the accusation could have been. And think about if he saw this person getting all this hate, getting all this, whatever, and then he just went, I don't think I'm going to post Footsteps. I was going to, but now I don't think I'm going to. That would suck. Think about how many stories now are not going to get posted. And I know a lot of people out there don't care about every single story posted, or they don't see those diamonds in the rough, but I see those diamonds. I'm on this subreddit, or Tales from the Creep, every week, picking out stories, getting stories submitted to me so that I have people's permission to read them. And I find bangers consistently, week after week after week. Watch one of my streams. Watch how fired up I get. I don't think, don't get me wrong, there's some streams where I get more excited than others, but on nearly every stream, I find a story that I like. I find something new. I find something creative. I find something awesome. And so to think now that they're especially from first-time writers, that bums me out, because I genuinely believe that writing and being creative is not just for professional creatives, meaning you don't have to make money to find purpose in telling a story, or, making a piece of art. That has intrinsic value just as a human being. It literally feeds and grows your soul. When you create something, it helps you in so many ways. It helps your mental health. It helps you physically. It helps you emotionally. It helps you blow off steam. It helps you there's a reason why you go to rehab, or you go to fucking a loony bin or something, and they have you do art therapy, is because even if it's coloring with a fucking crayon in a picture book, where the picture's already made for you and you're just coloring in the colors, that literally feeds your soul. I think about, it's so funny, but I think about the scene in Billy Madison, where he's coloring with the kids in kindergarten, and Mrs. Lippy comes up and she's like, "What are you drawing, Happy?" And he's like, "Well, I'm drawing a blue duck. I never seen a blue duck before, and I always wanted to see one." And then she goes, "Well, I think your blue duck's fantastic, and guess what? You just passed the first grade," or whatever. And then he goes, "Oh, really? What do you think about that, Mr. Duck? That's quacktastic," and he does that whole little bit. And that's just a funny example in a movie, but like, just something as simple as like, drawing a doodle, whatever, like all of that shit is what makes the human experience like unique, and it is like the chaos. That is the like chaos that makes life beautiful, right? It's that I can pick up something, whether it's a blank sheet of paper, whether it's a piece of clay, and I can make something out of nothing, right? That is like sacred and beautiful. And when people get turned off of that, it's really fucking sad, and it really pisses me off. And I love Tales from the Creep and CreepCast, and I love that it's a community of people trying something who have never done it before, who don't even know if they can write a story, or maybe wrote a story once in high school that they never showed to anybody, and are like, you know what, this podcast really inspired me. It can't be worse than Jeff the Killer. What the hell? I'll try it. And that's a great mentality to have, because I think in this day and age, people are depressed, people are separated, people are whatever. More people need to be creative, and writing especially, like, I think is such an important way of creativity. Like, I think it's an issue with men nowadays, where like men used to correspond with each other. They used to write journals. They used to like tell their story. They used to have friends that they'd write letters to back and forth. And so they used to express themselves in writing like all the time. Whereas now, what do? We text, we post some pictures online, we do whatever, but we don't actually take the time to like sit down and say like, if I just wanted to tell somebody about my day, what would I tell them? What parts would I leave out? What parts would I include? Nothing. Like it's so important to fucking express yourself, if only for your own sanity, that like any situation where people get shamed from doing that, or get barriers put up for them to express themselves, it just fucking sucks, and it pisses me off, and it bums me out. So with that, that's pretty much all I want to say on the topic. Pitiful. I'm so fucking sorry that this happened, and you're awesome, and we love you, and we love Drumming in the Clouds, and we love 1,000 Morning People, and all your work. I know I read another one of your stories too. I sleep with my window closed now. Yeah, I think those are all you posted online right now, but I look forward to see if you post or what you post next. If you don't, we completely understand, but we support you. And yeah, I think that's all I want to say to you directly. Oh, and I want to say, if you are watching this and you're thinking about posting a story, or you've posted some stories and you're not sure if you'll post more or not, I do still encourage people, post on Tales from the Creeps. There's a January's creepy contest right now. People are posting new stories every day. It's a poppin' little horror story subreddit, but it is the official subreddit for the CreepCast podcast. The banner was made by Affectionate Leave. He's made the artwork that I'm going to use for a lot of my thumbnails in the foreseeable future. So it's not only a place for for writers to write their stories, but there's a lot of really cool artists making stuff, doing artwork for stories or their own stories. There's stuff like that. There's people offering read for read, meaning you read their story, they'll read yours, they'll offer feedback. There's people like me who I've built a small channel, but a channel off of getting people's permission and really just reacting to their stories like the boys do on CreepCast, reading it, giving my thoughts. I'll do anything from pick out a typo to go on a 10-minute tangent or longer about something a story reminded me of, or I'll relate it back to the CreepCast episodes and what other CreepCast stories it reminds me of, stuff like that. So it's a cool community. It is supportive. I know that, it's adjacent to the CreepCast subreddit, but so I can understand why people would, be hesitant with everything we just talked about, but it has been a supportive place for me, and I hope it will be. I think it will continue to be supportive in the future. And look at this. 1,000 weekly contributions. People made 1,000, posts or whatever. Most of those are stories this week alone. Think about how many new stories are coming out. Are all of them going to be great? No, but that's 1,000 people deciding to create something from nothing, or that's 1,000 new stories that are just getting entered into the world that can scare, inspire, change someone's mind, tell somebody about a life that they would have no idea existed before. That's cool. That is something to celebrate. And so that's what I hope, Tales from the Creep can continue to be, is a celebration of horror and small horror writers, non-professional writers, people who are just dabbling, people who are consistent in writing, but maybe they have other professions. Maybe they don't want to be a professional writer, but maybe they still want to. Maybe they still love horror and want to be a part of it. So I think that's cool. What's up, Harold? How you doing, man? Let's get to the comments now, because that is pretty much everything I want to say. But support Tales from the Creeps. Post your stories. If this drama has soured you or made you wary of posting stories, I get it. But there are a lot of really cool, supportive people who just want to read cool stories and help you grow and learn as an author. I'm one of them. That's what I strive to be. I don't always succeed, but I do strive to try to support and promote and lift up new writers and people who are learning, because I'm just learning too. I'm not, I went to college for a while. I dropped out. I'm not anything special. I went for creative writing. I wanted to be a writer, but I'm not anything, special either. And I need help. I need help from talented people. And that's why I'm here, because the talent in this community is astounding. And so that's why I will continue to try to be an advocate for it and to champion it. So yeah. That's by forcing me to speak like I'm writing my dear family. Oh God. Base Doe Cadezo. Autism has buffed me by forcing me to speak like I'm writing my dear family a letter in the year 1776 on the regular. That's awesome. Good for you. I don't know. That's all I have to say. That's fucking cool. If I would love to sound like a letter from the 1700s all the time, using words like betwixt and I don't know, like that wind is. I don't know. I'm making stuff up, but I'm coming up blank because I'm not from the 1700s. But like, oh, that wind is so whimsical, like Dickensian. What does Dickensian even mean? I don't know, but using words like that. I've said before in my past streams when people use the word countenance, I love it. Edgar Allan Poe used it. People have used it. I think it was Harold you used it in a story. And I was like, I'm here for that. I fucking love when people use the word countenance. It just does something to me. I love it. See, Harold. I saw the title of this video. One of my stories was accused of having had art made by AI. I'll send it over to you if I still can. They locked it, so I can't repost it. No worries. For a news story, not an actual story. Yep, I used it in the masterpiece. Yeah, yep, yep. Exactly. Hell yeah. Well, that's awesome. And Harold, I do want to tell you, I know you made that post where you wanted it to be like Dogverse and you wanted people to write parts of it. I do want to contribute to that. I know you sent it to me and you were like, hey, if you want to, and I don't think anyone has written another part of it yet. Maybe they have. But I do want to be. Is that the post that's locked? I hope it's not. Yeah, it's such an old word. I love it. It appears like 100 times in Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Love it. Yeah, no, it's great. It's just there's something about that like neo. I don't even know if it's neo Gothic. I don't exactly know. But that Gothic era of writing that. Yeah, it just like it warms my heart. I think ever since I read Cask of Amontillado in like whatever grade that was, 6th grade, and yeah, I just immediately liked that sort of verbiage. It was so much fun. Tried joining in and it went nowhere. It's not the lock post. Okay, cool. Well, I know it may have died down or yeah, I don't know. My point was I did want to do it. It's just, I barely have enough time to stream, and so I was looking for a time I was maybe going to try to throw my hat in the ring on it this weekend and just do a quick little like comment or post on it just but yeah, cuz I still I know you explained to me the Dogverse thing. I still want to like read because I haven't read through it all. Like I wanted to read all the comments and see what other people have written and stuff. But I wanted to, if you still want me to. If not, if you're like just done with it, then I guess I won't bother. But I just thought it'd be cool and it'd be a way for me to write something kind of quick, just like from my phone. Because usually I don't write from my phone at all. I write analog or I write on my computer, but yeah, it seemed kind of fun, so I was willing to, if you're willing to wait till whenever I can get around to it, I'm willing to do it, I guess was my point with that. Yeah, LOL. Yeah, I whined to my mom about the job market, like, my dear mother, it is with great displeasure that I admit my wallet to be but a featherweight. Be but featherweight. That's awesome. I would love to have like, even if it's just like as a as a like ancillary character in my life. I would love to have a person like that in my life that just they're like, oh, you can blame it on the tism or whatever you want, but they're like, oh, he got hit in the head and now he thinks he's a World War II soldier. And like, just something like that, like some sitcom-esque shit where some guy, he's like bagging groceries and he's like, we rode to Galveston on a cold, dark night, and it's like the wind bit something fierce, like just something like that to where people are just like, what the fuck is that guy talking about? I would love that. Yeah, I just think antiquated things are, if not like interesting and cool, like funny, when people use like, I mean, I do it a lot where people are like, what the fuck does that mean? But I like to use antiquated words. One of my favorite is coxcomb. It's a Shakespearean word, but or like knave is another one too. It's like a coxcomb. It's from Twelfth Night, which I did that. I was a drama kid, and so I did the play Twelfth Night when I was in community college, and it was like, between the difference between or something like that, but a coxcomb and a knave, a thin-faced knave. And so I've been trying to the same way that like cuckold kind of came back, like cucking and cuckold, and that came back. I've been trying to bring single-handedly trying to bring coxcomb back, because I just think it's like a funny insult. Be like, fuck you, you fucking coxcomb. You know what I mean? I think it'd be fun. Go ahead, you can write whenever you want for it. Hell yeah, cool. Nice. Good to hear. Good to hear, creeping. I did watch your video. We'll talk maybe about it later in the comments, because I was thinking about messaging you or something. I appreciated the shout out at the end of the video that you did, but I am curious as to like how you found that the person with the X, like what was that from stills from the end of the podcast that like it flashed on screen, or I didn't really understand how you went from the clicks to that thing, but I guess I don't know. Anyways, interesting, but that's kind of inside baseball for me and Creepin'. But people, check out Professor Creepin's channel. He's working right now on the CreepCast ARG. There's been some people who have brought up that they think or that they believe that there's an ARG within like the clicks at the end of the CreepCast episode. Like there's some sort of code in them and some sort of like cicada, whatever. And there was Professor Creepin explains it in his videos, but there was a post somebody did on the CreepCast Reddit a long time ago that never really got picked up any steam, that was like, I found an ARG within the CreepCast stuff and made it pretty far. I'm surprised more people aren't talking about it. But then like, yeah, it's interesting. So Professor Creepin has been diving into that, and it's interesting. I'm curious to just see where it goes. I'm not smart enough, with cryptography or anything like that to really figure any of that shit out. But I can certainly watch and be entertained by it, So I hope more people start talking about that, because I think Wendigoon would totally be, especially Wendigoon, but would totally be the type of guy to just introduce some subtle things in videos over time that slowly, if even they only amount to like big inside jokes, but like just something that over time like evolves slowly, would be super cool. A24 did something similar with a trailer that came out called it wants to be heard. Right, yeah. Um yeah, I remember seeing something about that online. I don't know much about it, but yeah, anyways, that's pretty much the stream for today, folks. I feel bad cuz I have a good amount of you in the chat now. Um that I'm going to call it quits, but it is getting late and I do need to go to bed cuz I have work tomorrow, but I will be back to stream this weekend. So, look forward to that. I'm going to stream, and the stream will, without a doubt, start with part 2 of this story. My friends and I found a party in the woods. We shouldn't have stayed. Part 2. Um, I liked part 1 a lot. I thought it was really cool and impactful. I'm really looking forward to part 2. I was hoping to do it a lot sooner, but stuff just kind of came up, and then I really wanted to get this video, this live stream out because, I just wanted to give my 2 cents about it. It's been on my mind for the past month, really, basically since it happened. And, so, that's what I have planned for like this weekend is to start with this story and then just kind of go from there. Yeah. Thanks, Harold. Thanks for stopping by. I'm so glad, and all the new people we had in chat too. Base Dough, I don't know what to call you, but thank you so much for being in chat. You are awesome. I love chatting with you. Rude Dude, of course. Professor Creepin, as always. There were some other people. Jenny, right? Jenny, yeah. This person. In procrastination. I am procrastination. All you guys, just thank you so much for watching this. I think it was a important stream, to not only kind of set the record straight, but also talk about some drama in the community and maybe how we can be better as a community. I think it's important, I think we can't just hold everyone else to a standard and then not try to hold us as a community to a standard too. I think that it's a two-way street, and we gotta all work together to support each other and to make sure that this podcast continues to thrive, because if the fan base implodes or breaks out in a civil war, then the podcast isn't going to be nearly as fun or as good. And so I think it's important for us to like have these discussions and then move on to, I think that now that I finally said all this stuff, otherwise I'd just be kind of stewing on it, and I'd be being like, oh, I want to talk about it. But now I've kind of said my piece, and now I just want to move on, and I want people to read Pitiful Scream's work and just judge it for themselves, and support him because he's an amazing author. He's an absolute badass, a legend, an inspiration to me for sure. I think if that's the main thing I want to say is just support Pitiful Scream. Go check out his stories. Support the other authors on Tales from the Creeps, and just continue to stay creeped. Creep the fuck out of your cast all fucking day long. Yay! Yay! All right, let's see what other.
I'll just be straight up, dude. No one wants to hear your fucking spiel.
This is what we need. We need some whiskey this whiskey will tell us if people are AI or not.
Whiskey is good proofing water. Tells you who's real and who isn't.
Whiskey's good proofing water. It proves who's real and who isn't. See, that's the issue. Robots can't get drunk, so if we give whiskey, we gotta figure out our whiskey, folks.
Whiskey is good proofing
My
water.
safe word will be
Tells you who's
whiskey.
real and who isn't.
My safe word will be whiskey. Whiskey.
Whiskey is good proofing water. Tells you who's real and who isn't.
Alright, folks. That's gonna do it for me. Oh, wait. No. I want to play more sounds first. Come on. I really gotta figure out how to change these. My bad. Bye, Boots. My teeth aren't real. So does that mean I'm not real?